What we want to talk about today is something that we're all constantly seeking to improve and to get, which is to have an easy life. Yes, and to have kedusha in my home. Because ultimately our entire life is surrounded around our home. We are programmed and designed that from the day we are born, we're looking to build a family. And once we already get to that point, that our entire life is surrounded around our home. Whether it's the relationship between the husband and wife, later on comes relationship between the parents and the kids. And then of course in all this is involved our livelihood, our parnasa, and the shlom bayit, and health, everything around there. If you focus on our life, you see that our main focus is on our family life. And if everything is going smooth with that, then Baruch Hashem, then life is comfortable. And then when things like this start going a little bit off the derech, that's where we start having all this hardship. Whether it's from parnasa, whether it's shlom bayit, whether it's with the chinuch of the eladim. Ultimately, everything funnels into that category. Now again, when things going well, then no complaints, everything's fine. But the thing is that in most cases, most of the nisyonot that we go through and most of the problems that we go through has to do with that. And ultimately, we're all looking for the same thing. To be happy and to have a smooth life. Now, life is programmed in a way that we're always going to have ups and downs. We can't have a very flat line in our life, just good or just excellent. Because the motion of this life is to constantly have up and down, up and down. If you're looking at a person that is connected to a monitor in a hospital, you'll see that the line is constantly going up and down. And if chas v'shalom that line becomes flat, then the person, lo aleinu, dies. So the rhythm of our life is constantly going up and down. The point is to know when I'm going down is how am I looking at this yerida, this motion of going down. Most people looking at it as something very negative, and then it pulls them even lower, instead of looking at this yerida, this motion of going down, as me taking momentum to go up again. Now, half of the times that we go down, this yerida, it's the rhythm of life. It has to happen. This is how our life is programmed. It's just knowing how to accept it and how to deal with it. But the other half of these yeridot of going down is from my actions. Because the way this world works is whatever I throw out to the universe, then it will come back at me. A lot of people think that God is punishing us. People going through all sorts of hardships and they say, why is God punishing me? I'm such a good person. The reality is that God doesn't punish anyone. It's a very twisted way of thinking. This is like a mind frame of a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old, that God is this tyrant in Shamayim and you do something wrong and you get punished. It doesn't work like that. It's a very distorted way of seeing God. Rather, the way this world works is that I do some type of an action and right away I will get a reaction. If I do a positive action, the reaction will be positive. If I do something negative, then the reaction will be negative. That's how it works. And I'm in control in most cases of what's going on around me. Ultimately, we're not in control. Ultimately, Hashem is in control. And the more I give the control to Hashem, the more my life is running smoother. The problem is that we start running into all sorts of issues when I think I'm taking control. This is what's called ego. That I think that I'm the one who's doing it, or I'm the one who's in control, or I'm the one who's going to change the situation. Ultimately, it's all in Hashem's hands. But on the other hand, one can look at it that with my actions, I bring on myself a reaction. So you can't really say 100% that that's how it is, but just for the sake of the example and to understand it clear, I would say that half of the things that happen to us is that's the rhythm of life. That's what's supposed to happen. And the other half is actually in my hands, and I can control it with my actions. So we gotta totally disconnect from the thought that Hashem is punishing me if I did something wrong. There is the concept of what's called sachar ve'onesh, a reward and a punishment. But it's a very limited way of explaining the concept. What is the concept of sachar ve'onesh, of reward and a punishment? Is you do something good, our sages say schar mitzvah mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Now what does that mean? Is in the world to come, in Gan Eden, Olam Haba, in the Yemot HaMashiach, the mitzvah that I performed, the reward that I'm going to get is the actual result of that mitzvah. Now a mitzvah, you can translate it as commandment, but a mitzvah can also be explained coming from the shoresh, from the root that is called tzivui. This is a commandment. But a more in-depth way to explain it, that mitzvah comes from the word tzavta. Tzavta means a connection, a unity, a very strong connection. So when I do a certain mitzvah, then what I do is I draw down to this world, I bring down to this world this godly light, and I get connected with it. I get united with that godly light. And that's the reward that I get. Now there are 248 channels where I can bring this godly light to me, corresponding to 248 positive mitzvot that we have in the Torah. The 365 precepts, the mitzvot lo taseh that we have, these are just fences to block from anything coming out from the outside. Same way that you have a house, so you always do an exterior level of the house, so you have walls, you have shutters, you have windows. That's mainly to prevent things from coming in. If you put shutters, it's preventing from light coming in. You put bars, it's preventing burglars to come in. You put walls, you don't need, you want to guard yourself. So this is corresponding to the mitzvot lo taseh, to all these precepts that I'm blocking anything negative to coming in, and basically we're taking my shefa, my abundance. But the positive mitzvot is how I draw down this abundance to this world. So I have 248 channels where I can bring this shefa, this abundance to me. This corresponds to the mitzvot, and every mitzvah that I do, I bring a certain hamshacha, a certain effect, and by me doing that, I'm able to get connected with it. That's why our sages say, Yafa sha'a achat ba'olam hazeh betshuvah u'ma'asim tovim mikol chay olam haba. 1 hour in this world of tshuva and good deeds is better than the entire world to come. Now one might say, 1 hour in this world, the world to come, olam haba, the ultimate pleasure that I'm united with God. So God has many different levels. These levels correspond to how much He's revealing Himself. This is what's called Gilui Elokut. And the higher the level is, the more the revelation is greater, the more I'm closer to God. Now when I do a mitzvah, I'm actually connected to the highest level of God, which is called Atzmut, Or Ein Sof, the highest level of godly revelation. So by me doing a mitzvah, I connect into a certain bank of energy, and the reward is the effect that I'm getting from the mitzvah. Now our mind will never understand what it means. You tell a person in this world, here's $100,000, he'll be like, oh, that's a good reward. You tell a person, here's a house, here's a vacation, in our physical mind, that's a good reward. You tell a person, here, put tefillin on, or do any other mitzvah, and you're going to get a certain connection to the Master of the universe. What is this connection? What is this? So the thing is, ultimately we'll never know what it means in this world. The only way how we know what is this connection in this world is when I'm experiencing some type of happiness. And we're constantly running after these moments of happiness. This is what's called in Hebrew ta'anug. And Hashem created the world in a way that I am programmed to constantly look for ta'anugot, for pleasures. Now everything in this world manifests from the 10 sfirot in the spiritual worlds. The highest sphira is called Keter. Keter is a crown. Keter is something that is surrounding, like you kind of put a crown on your head. This is the motion of Keter. We know that there's what's called chitzoniyut haketer, the external part of the keter, and there's pnimiyut haketer, the internal part of the keter. Everything in the keter, everything that we have originates in that sphira. And from that everything manifests into this world. And the highest part of this sphira is what's called ratzon ha'elyon, the will, the desire. And from that, from the desire will come down what's called machshava, a thought. And from that, machshava will birth tanug. These are the pleasure, tanug is pleasure. These are the three levels how we operate. First we have a desire. Then the desire will birth a thought. And the thought will birth pleasure. That's how the motion, how we're operating. To give an example, I have a desire. I wanna have a new dress, a new suit. So my thought, it will birth a thought. Okay, how am I getting that new suit, this new dress or whatever I want to purchase? I need to go make money. I need to get out of the house. I need to go and purchase it. I'm thinking how I'm getting it. And ultimately what I wanted to bring it to a level of tanug, that I'm getting some type of pleasure. Very few people who are sick in their mind are looking for the opposite of pleasure. They're looking to somehow hurt themselves. We're not going to dissect why a person will get to the point that they're wanting to hurt themselves, but the nature of most people is to constantly look for something that will pleasure me. I'm not going to look for something that is going to make me suffer. So ultimately it all comes up to the level of ratzon. There's always a ratzon. I'm hungry, I have a ratzon, I have a will to eat, then my machshava will start developing it, and ultimately I wanted to get derive pleasure out of it. Now, when I'm experiencing this pleasure, then everything's good. You can look at something very, very simple, like a good meal that will give me pleasure, because my taste buds are enjoying this amazing food. A pleasure can be taking a beautiful walk in a beautiful garden. Everybody has their own pleasures. There's very basic pleasures. Some people get pleasure looking at a screen and seeing a game, seeing a bunch of men running on a field and kicking a ball, and they get some type of pleasure from that. But this is a very, very superficial pleasure. It's a very limited pleasure from something very, very that has no importance to it. Unfortunately, in this world, when people go down in their spiritual level, then what drives their pleasure is very simple things, very basic things, and things that have no mashmaut, no meaning to it. And these pleasures are empty. All these physical pleasures are completely empty. This is what's called hevel. Something that is like a balloon. It just has air in it, but it's totally empty. So you enjoy yourself for an hour or two, and then it disappears. You go on a vacation, you enjoy yourself for a week, then it disappears. You only have memories and pictures. I'm not saying that vacations are bad. Vacations are very important because you need to rejuvenate. But the physical pleasures that we get from this world are very empty, and what they do is like pump a big balloon. I get a very, very short pleasure from it, and then there it goes out, and now I'm in a place that I have an emptiness. So when I run after very superficial pleasures, then I get a very short dose for 1 hour, for 2 hours, for a day, for a week, whatever the pleasure gives me. Since it's based on nothing, it's empty. Once this pleasure is over, then I find myself with a void, with a very empty place, because I fill that place with something that has no meaning to it. The only real pleasure is only coming from the spiritual world. There's no such a thing as a pleasure in this world that will sustain. Anything in this world, take anything that you derive pleasure from in this world, it would last to a very limited time. Even if it's something long, like a vacation. So 2 weeks you're having pleasure. But anything that comes from this physical world ultimately will finish. So when I'm constantly focusing on getting my pleasures, these ta'anugot, from very physical things, then what I'm doing in a spiritual way, I'm building these vessels, these very big vessels, spiritual vessels, that there's nothing in it. There's no light in it. So the little light that I shed in it gives me a momentarily pleasure and a satisfaction, and then it disappears and I find myself with a very big void. And the more I build these vessels, then the more greater the void becomes. And the more that I will run after these superficial pleasures, these are how I'm building these vessels. These vessels are built not from the right way, because the right vessels is what the Torah tells me to do, which are Torah and mitzvahs. This is the right way to build a spiritual vessel. The concept of a spiritual vessel, the teachings of Kabbalah teaches us, is everything in this world is built with two patterns, a vessel and a light. And it manifests into this world that everything in this world has a vessel, and then inside it has a light. I want to drink, then I need a cup. I need to put the drink, the liquid into the cup. And even my body is a vessel to my neshama, to my soul. And somebody pays me, gives me a check, I need a vessel for that, I need a bank account. I constantly need there's some type of a relation. Now in our spiritual life, I'm constantly building these spiritual vessels. Now I can build them from positive things, which are Torah and mitzvahs, and I can build them from negative things, which are very physical, basic things, that in a very superficial way, I think that that's the important thing, but that's actually not. And the result will be that I feed my neshama, my soul, with these physical pleasures, but the ultimate result will be emptiness. And then I have a greater desire to get more of the pleasure, because I have a greater void now. And the void grows and grows and grows. And that's why you see a lot of people, especially when they're not connected to their source, which is God, their life is constantly pursuing after the next pleasure, and they find themselves in greater depression because they feel this emptiness. So they blame it on everything. So the relationship will feel empty, so they'll blame it on the husband. He's annoying. He doesn't understand me. He doesn't listen to me. And then they'll always blame it on something. When I feel a void, something's bothering me, the first emotion, what most people will do, is to look to who to blame. Because I'm perfect, I'm good, and nothing's wrong with me. It's the entire world that's the problem. The world is the problem. I'm fine. The right motion is to look, wait a minute, if I'm experiencing some type of a void, an emptiness, maybe I did something. Maybe I caused it. And the right motion is to constantly evaluate my situation, and if first of all, I do a self-assessment, then I understand that, wait a minute, maybe most likely it's me. Most people, what they do is they have a bad relationship with their husband, they'll blame the husband. He doesn't understand me. He doesn't say this, he doesn't say that. All he cares about is the car, his job, whatever. There's going to be a lot of excuses. So I'm giving one example out of many, which is a relationships, because ultimately we want to feel happy. We constantly want to be happy. And if I'm not feeling happy, then I'm going to look for all these little things that will satisfy my little pockets of emptiness.
The vessels that we say everyone's always building, that's through our ritzonot and our machshavot?
No, a vessel can be spiritual. If you do a mitzvah, then you're building a positive vessel. And what is this mitzvah? A mitzvah is the vessel that will hold a certain godly light, what's called hamshacha, and that's how I really satisfy my ratzon. Now, if my ratzon, my will, is aligned with the will of God, then I'm always going to be satisfied, because I'm doing what God wants, not what I want. If I'm pursuing my ratzon, then I'm going to run after my tail, and I'll never satisfy myself, because what would be translated to be my ratzon? I want a nice meal, and I want a nicer car, I want a new dress, I want another vacation. I need to satisfy myself because I feel this emptiness. But it's the wrong motion, because I'm building the wrong vessel. So I buy myself a new dress, this is a vessel. But the light that gets dressed in it is a fake light. So the dress is nice, and I'm happy for 1 hour, or for the first time that I wear it, and after 3-4 times, it's out of fashion, it's disgusting, doesn't fit me. So the excitement, you get this excitement of getting the dress out of the shop, and you have some type of an excitement, for an hour or two, then you go home, you take pictures of it, you put it, you share it with all your friends, look at this beautiful dress I bought. It's a very empty will. But ultimately, I'm not saying that it's something that's wrong to buy a dress. I'm just giving you an example how sometimes we pursue something that we try to grasp on it, that this is my pleasure. But it's not. You buy a dress because you need to be dressed normal, and you want to be dressed nice because you want to feel comfortable. But you can make this the main thing, the ikar. This is the fel. So everything that comes from my ratzon, from my desire, usually will not be aligned with what Hashem wants. Now, if I'm pulling down the ratzon, my ratzon, then ultimately what will be the ta'anug that comes out of it, the pleasure that comes out of it, is very superficial and very limited. And then it's going to end. And this is what's called a big vessel with no light, empty vessel. There's nothing there. So, a man gets excited, he buys himself a new car. So for 1 month, he's excited from the car. All the gadgets, all the fancy stuff, everybody's looking at him, he's going and making circles in the neighborhood, and he gets he's pleasuring himself, but with a very empty thing. So the vessel is very big, because it's a very big excitement, but the light, there's no light in it, it's empty, it's hevel. Hevel is empty. And then what happens after a week or two or a month, the car becomes, okay, I'm already driving it already for a month or two. Now I'm stuck with the lease for 3 years, and I don't get excited from this anymore. Now I'm going to look for the newer model and a nicer car and has a more sophisticated sound system, etc., etc. This is what's called an empty will. It's like an empty ta'anug. Why? So I get something very, very, it's very limited. And then it disappears. So I'm looking for the next thrill. So this is the relation of a big vessel that is completely empty. But if I'm searching for the will of Hashem, and the will of Hashem is for me to right now sit and learn Torah for 1 hour. So I will sit and learn Torah 1 hour. By that I'm building a spiritual vessel. The result will be from the mitzvahs that I pull down into this world a certain light, certain godly light. And this certain godly light will be dressed into the vessel and will manifest into my soul, that will empower my soul, and then I feel the ultimate ta'anug. Now it's not going to be a ta'anug, a pleasure from a good meal or something that excites me. But since it's going to be the real pleasure, it will fulfill my neshama, so I don't feel this void. I don't feel this emptiness. I don't feel sadness or empty or fake, because it's the real light that empowers my neshama. My soul gets happy from Torah and mitzvahs. That's it. My soul does not get happy from food, from sleep, from a movie, from a vacation. It doesn't interest my soul even. My soul wants Torah and mitzvahs. Now, if I'm giving my body too much pleasures, my soul is neglected, then my soul starts withering like a flower that starts dying. And then my inner part is empty. So maybe on the external part I'm happy, but everything that is external is very, very limited. Everything that is internal, pnimi, is the real thing. So the point is that we're constantly focusing on the wrong thing. And the result will be that at the end of the day, when I'm sitting just me, myself, in the room, if I feel emptiness in me, then the problem is coming because I'm not focusing myself the right place. I'm constantly looking at the wrong place. So the result will be etziv, sadness.
I also, I don't know how to say this, but why is the world set up in a way that it's like the unproductive or unhealthy or unreal pleasures seem like such a great idea so much of the time? Like, I can see it from, the difference between a parent and a child. You can see, you eat ice lollies the whole day, you're going to feel so ill afterwards. It's like the same analogy. If we spend our lives doing like completely pointless, simplistic stuff, we're not really going to feel great at the end of it. But
You're asking why is it like that?
yeah, like it's such a struggle. If you ask maybe I'm just thinking to myself, you ask most people, would you rather do, whatever it is that you particularly fancy doing, or sit down with an ancient text and read it? Like, majority of people, they know they should probably say, I'll learn a bit, but like the struggle to like get that to be your actual choice and like not to want to just, whatever it is, have a long bath or watch TV or whatever it is, like, or eat the junk food as opposed to the vegetables, like, we know it, but you don't feel that that's gonna,
I'll tell you where it's coming from and how you can change it. Because one of the points of the class is to figure out what am I doing wrong and how can I change it and actually derive the right energy down. Now it all starts when Adam and Chava were in Gan Eden. Because at the beginning, the world was created in a certain way, and that's how it was supposed to be. And the world was created that Adam and Chava constantly see Elokut. They see godliness. But then came the Nachash, the snake, and he messed things up. Now, you have to understand, the snake is not like this little spaghetti roaming the land in a beautiful garden. The Nachash is the Yetzer Hara, is the other side of holiness. Now, we're not going to dissect the entire story, but up until that point, godliness was revealed. Adam HaRishon saw the Kadosh Baruch Hu constantly. Once Adam HaRishon and Chava sinned, then they brought down to the world what's called a klipa, a shell, some type of an energy that covers the truth. Now, in the story we know that there were two trees, the tree of life, Etz HaChaim, and the tree of knowledge, Etz HaDaat. The tree of knowledge, Etz HaDaat, this is the sheker of this world. Because in the Etz HaDaat, Kabbalah calls Etz HaDaat Tov V'Ra, good and bad. Which means that once they sinned and they went down in their level, they dressed the world with some type of a cover. This is called a klipa. That's why the word world in Hebrew is olam. What is olam? Olam comes from he'elem. They concealed God. They covered God with this klipa. Now they brought down to the world this klipa and they activated the tree of knowledge. Etz HaDaat. Now what does it mean activating the tree of knowledge? It means that now they can see the difference between good and bad. It all looks the same. This is what the Zohar calls Alma de Shikra, the world of sheker, of deception. So they brought down this Alma de Shikra, this klipa, and now that's why they were thrown out of Gan Eden. And the reason why they were thrown out of Gan Eden is because Hashem, first of all, was afraid they're going to eat from the tree of life. And Hashem said, if they're going to eat from the tree of life, by them eating from the tree of knowledge, they brought death into the world. If they're going to eat from the tree of life, then they will give life, eternal life to the klipa, and by then, the evil will be forever. So they had to be pushed out of Gan Eden. But since then, they activated this certain power in this world of the klipa, that now everything is concealed. So I look at something and I don't know if it's good or bad. And this is the sheker of this world. Now then came the Torah and started teaching us how to recognize what's good or what's bad. So the Torah comes and tells me this is kosher, this is not kosher. This is permitted, this is not permitted. This is pure, this is not pure. The Torah came as a manual to start explaining to me how, so I can start recognizing. Because if I wouldn't have the Torah, how would I know that a goat is kosher to eat and a pig is not kosher to eat? It looks like two animals. Then it looks like, what's the difference? Why does a fish that has fins and scales is kosher and the fish that doesn't is not kosher? If I would use my common sense, I would never see the difference. I can put now two apples on the table. One is kosher, one is not kosher. How can an apple be not kosher? First of all, it can be from what's called orla, from the first 3 years that the tree is giving fruit. The apple is not kosher, I can't eat it. Also can be from the year of Shemitah, from the 7th year that are not allowed to work on the land. I can't eat this apple, it's Shemitah. So you put it on the table, two apples, it looks exactly the same. How can I know what's good or what's bad? This is the sheker of the world, the concealment of this world. Now forget about something like that. I can put now two apples on the table, they look exactly the same, one inside is rotten. How can I know what's the good one, what's the bad one? It has a ma'atefet, an external part that covers it. So this is the shekel of the world, that it's hiding the emet from me. Now what is driving me in this world? I have two nefashot in my body. I think we mentioned in the previous shiur that my soul is built from 5 components, from 5 levels. The highest level of the soul is called Yechidah. Yechidah comes from the word Yichud, not Yechid. There's only one Yechid in the world, that's the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It comes from the word Yichud. Yichud means unity. Like a Chatan and Kala, bride and groom, and they go into the Yichud room. It's the ultimate unity between the bride and groom. So this piece of the Neshama that is called Yechidah is totally connected with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is what's called Chelek Elokah, a piece of Hashem. The next level is called Chaya. Chaya is not an animal. Rather, this is what's called an Or Makif, a surrounding light, like aura. This is what's called Tzelem. How we see in the Torah, it says, B'Tzelem Elokim Nivra Adam. In the shape, in the image of God, the man was created. So in the spiritual world, the spiritual man has the exact same shape like we have, a head, hands, and it manifests into the body. And the Tzelem is holding all the godly sparks that I have to elevate in my life. So if a person lives 60 years, you can take 60 years, times that 365 days, add the exact days according to the leap year, you get the number that you get. This is the amount of the godly sparks that Tzelem had in it and had to elevate through its life. Our life is already predestined, how long we're going to live. Chas v'shalom, a person can do certain sins and he will bring it much faster. All the sins that they fall under the category of what's called mitah bidei shamayim, death by the heavenly court. A person can originally have 70 years, then do a lot of these sins. There's a decree from the heavenly court that he has to get punished by death, and then the person dies when he's 30, 50. He didn't complete what he was supposed to do. He has to come back in a reincarnation and do it again. Now he has double to do. So the avodah that we do in this world is very important because every day has a meaning to it. And if I didn't do what I'm supposed to do that day, then the next day I have to do double. This is one of the many reasons why we actually go to sleep at night. Because when you think of it, why did God create sleep? It's a waste of time. We're wasting a third of our life on a bed. It's a waste of time and a waste of space in rooms. If we didn't have to sleep, we didn't need so many rooms. So the reason why we sleep is because that day when I completed my avodah, I take this godly spark that I refined and I take it up while I sleep. I go up and I take it up. That's why it's so important to say Kriyat Shema Lamita at night, because I finish the day. And if Chas v'Shalom I did something wrong that day, I did an avera, then it will not allow my neshama to go up at night to get recharged. And then I don't elevate that spark, and then the next day I wake up in the morning with an emptiness because I didn't go to where I was supposed to go. That's why Kriyat Shema Lamita is so important, because it's a time when I do tshuva. I repent that time. I reflect what I did that day, and I can do tshuva, and then my neshama lets go from all the dirt that accumulated that night, and the neshama goes up. So I don't want to sidetrack too much, but it's important that we understand the structure of our soul. The next level of our soul is called neshama, then comes to ruach, then it goes to nefesh. Now, in the nefesh, I have two types of nefesh. What's called a nefesh elokit and a nefesh behemit. A nefesh elokit is the piece of Hashem. It's a godly part of my nefesh. And it desires only good. It wants to learn Torah, it wants to do mitzvahs, it wants to give charity. But then I have another one in my body, it's called the nefesh behemit. And the nefesh behemit comes from the word behema, but not because it's an animal, rather because its character traits are like an animal. It wants to eat, it wants to sleep, it wants to have pleasure, it wants to enjoy this world. And also animals have all sorts of negative character traits, anger and violence. All these character traits that come from the nefesh behemit. My job in this world is to refine my nefesh behemit. This is what's called tikkun hamidot. I have to work on my character traits. I have two components here. I have what's called ofi. Ofi is a character. And then I have attributes. I have midot. Now, midah can be translated as attribute, and a midah can also be translated as a measurement. So I can take a certain attribute, like the attribute of chesed, of kindness, and with the right measurement, a right amount of kindness, refine my character, my ofi. Now all the bad things that comes to me comes from the nefesh habehemit. Now, going back to what you asked, my nefesh habehemit is going to be magneted or drawn to these fake things. So it would be drawn to a good meal, wants to pleasure from food, like an animal. And it would be drawn to the bed to sleep for 10 hours. And what would draw this nefesh habehemit is all these fake things, like a magnet. The nefesh elokit will be drawn to a shiur Torah, to shul, to do an act of charity. And there's constantly a battle. So the world is basically sunk in this klipa that deceives me. So the world is the world of deception. So things might look good, and they're actually not good. They're bad. And things might look bad, and they're actually good. The easiest way to see how it manifests into this world is with food. You go now to the supermarket, you look like you pull a box out of the shelf, it will tell you 0 fat, no color, no sugar, no food coloring. And it's full of junk. It's not even true. You look at Coke, Diet Coke. It's not diet, there's nothing diet in there. You know how much sugar is in it? It tells you diet. This is shekel. You go to products on the shelf, it will tell you 0 fat. So most people are like, oh, 0 fat, now I'm going to be on a diet. There's no such a thing even as 0 fat. It's substance, chemicals, and all sorts of extras. 90% of the nutrition and the food that's on the shelves in our day is poison. It's not even food. It's not even connected to food. It's chemicals, food coloring, all sorts of extras like MSG gives you all these flavors. So this is the ultimate shekel, that you look at something and it looks good when it's actually not good. And like this, there's many, many examples. The point is that if I don't carry my manual, my spiritual GPS, I will automatically be drawn to the negative things, because my body is more stronger than my neshama. Unless I refine my soul to a point that my soul is stronger. Now if I get to a point that my soul is stronger, then my body is tafel, it becomes what's called merkava, a wagon. My soul pulls my body. So a person who really works on themselves, they want to sit and study for 4 hours a biblical text that might seem extremely boring. Why? Because they get the ultimate ta'anug from that. They get the real happiness.
And that's why we see the shepherd.
And that's why the husband that walks in that night home after his entire day was involved in Torah, even if he was sitting in his business, but in this business he was thinking how to work honestly and not to lie, and what he's going to do with the extra money that he has, how to give charity. And in between he reads a little bit, and in the break he goes to a shiur, and in the afternoon break he goes to pray mincha, and then the evening break he goes to pray arvit, and then he goes to a class that night. His entire day is empowered with Torah and mitzvot. When he comes home, his energy is totally different than the man that did nothing that day. So the man that did nothing spiritual that day will come home, why is the dinner not ready? Why is there a mess? Why is there all a mess? Why is this that? Why is it? Coming with these terrible emotions. Or even if he comes all totally relaxed. I'm not going to say a nice word. Hi, my wife, how are you? Thank you for making the meal. You look tired, why don't you go to sleep? I'll help with the kids. But the man who's all day long injected spirituality into his body and into his soul, the energy that he walks in is totally different. Totally different, because inside himself he's satisfied. So he's not going to look to start a fight with his wife. Why is the laundry not done? Or why is the meal cold? Or whatever nonsense that he comes up with. Why? His neshama is fulfilled. He's not looking to fight with anyone. He's not looking to fight with the kids. Things don't get him upset right away. Now one might ask, yeah, but I know many men that they daven in the morning, they pray in the morning, they pray mincha, they learn, they do mitzvot, they still come with this energy. So first of all, could be that they have still a deficiency. The thing is that when a man learns a lot of Torah and does a lot of mitzvot, but he has one hole, one leak into something not positive, all this good energy goes to the other side. So a person can be involved in a lot of good things and have a few bad things that he's doing. A man can look at the wrong place, say the wrong things, and it will affect everything. All the kedusha will make it dirty. It's almost like taking a cup of water and take a dark beverage, like take Coca-Cola, and you put 3-4 drops in the water. Right away the water is already brown. A little bit of dirt, a little bit of junk makes the pure part completely diluted. On the other hand, you take a bottle of Coca-Cola and you drop in a few drops of water, it doesn't change the color. You know how much water you have to put into the Coca-Cola to change the water? That's how much good you have to pour into the bad.
But isn't the aspect of doing mitzvahs, and even if you're lacking in something else, it shouldn't affect? That's why we're compared to Rimon. It doesn't affect, even
it shouldn't.
Has parts where there's bad, but the good is still good. So your analogy with Coke, a couple of drops, makes everything bad, then why?
No. The analogy is not that the bad affects the good. Whatever good you do is yours. I'm giving an example that a man can do a lot of good things that day. I'm giving one out of many examples. But a man can wake up in the morning, go and pray shacharit, learn some Torah. All day long he's involved in very positive things. But he's also doing some not good things. Here and there maybe he lies a little bit in his business. Here and there a little bit of lashon hara. Maybe looking at the wrong place. Doing some not so positive things. The good things will never be taken away. But when he's involving also with some negative things, the radiation, let's call it, of the good things will get a little bit dirty. And then when he comes home, he's not 100% refined or relaxed, because he also brings a charge of negative things. Now this is not black and white. I'm giving one big example out of many. Don't take my words and say, it's like this and like that. First of all, nothing is black and white, because each soul has a different capacity. One man can learn 1 hour of Torah, and it will be equal to another man learning 3 hours Torah. I'm giving an example with a man because just to point out that sometimes a person can spend his entire day, and what is he carrying that day? If he's carrying a lot of positive energy or he's carrying a lot of negative energy. The point is that each individual is completely different. The spiritual capacity of each one is totally different. One person the easiest way to explain it is we're like light bulbs. So one person lights 40 watts, one person would light 60 watts, one person would light 200 watts. Each soul has a different capacity. The difference you see it, a level of a tzaddik is a total different capacity. The mitzvah of a tzaddik is not a mitzvah of a regular person. Now, it doesn't mean one is better than the other. This has nothing to do with somebody's better than the other. Rather, that's how we're built. The easiest way to explain it is, imagine now you're building a building. So you have the engineer, and you have the architect, and you have the electrician, and you have the painter, and you have all these trades. Now, one might say, the most important trade is the engineer or the architect. And the most, least important, the plumber is, But you can build a building that is worth billions of dollars, and if this building doesn't have toilets, this building is worthless. So the plumber is important as the other trades. So one might say, no, the engineer is much more important. Yeah, maybe he has a different job. But ultimately, we're all one big system. Each one has his character, his donation, his part to the entire system. So ultimately, the souls are a little bit different. They have a different spiritual capacity. The point is, one of the many examples that I chose to give is that a man, if a man really refines himself, it's same with a woman. We started with a man, so we're sticking with it. A person can refine himself to such a level that the physical things don't impress him. And then the body becomes totally annulled to the neshama. So we said a man, let's move to a woman. A woman can wake up in the morning and want to pray for 40 minutes. The kids are in school, the baby's sleeping, whatever, she has time. She will want to pray for 40 minutes, shacharit. Why? Because the soul is much more powerful than the body. The soul is pulling the body to want to pray for 40 minutes instead of sitting in the bath for 40 minutes. That's when the body is pulling. It says, no. I'm going to get my relaxation and my peace of mind in a pool of water, of bubbles and hot water. Ultimately, what really gives the real relaxation? Not the bath. The bath is a very limited pleasure that will give you a relaxation for an hour and a little bit of fun. But ultimately, the real relaxation will come from praying 40 minutes. And this is the sheker. This is the lie where you don't know, you can't see between what's good or bad. An example to see it, take a 3-year-old, 2-year-old. You give the 2-year-old a cucumber and a lollipop. They will be drawn to the lollipop because it has a shiny color. And for whatever reason, because it has the element of sheker in it, the deception, the nefesh habehemit will get drawn to it. You know who doesn't have it? Animals. The other day we made it was a funny thing. My 3-year-old, she dropped some sukaria, like a lollipop, not a lollipop, but a candy on the floor. And I told my wife, it was there for a couple hours. I told her, we have to tell her to pick because ants will come and eat it. So my wife she's a health guru. She's like, ants will not eat it. It's full of sugar and food coloring. They're never going to touch it. And the reality is that the animal, even an ant, a bug, they're not going to go to the fake things. They're going to go to bread, they're going to go to crackers, they're going to go to vegetables. They're not going to eat treats. Because they see what's true and what's not true. Same with other animals. You put to a cow, you can test it with different animals. You put the food that they get nutrition from, they'll go to that. They're not going to go to the fake things. So the thing is that we, unfortunately, since we are 50% nefesh behemit, then we get drawn to what is not true. And the point is that if we wouldn't have the Torah, we would never know what's the emet. That's why we got the Torah. The Torah is a manual. Torah comes from the word hora'ah, to teach. So the Torah came and told us, this is permitted, this is not permitted, this is good, this is not good, this is kosher, this is not kosher. Follow the manual, everything will be okay. Here it already comes to other elements that I have a yetzer hara, etc., etc. There's many components to the structure of it. But in essence, my nefesh habehemit will constantly be drawn to what's sheker, what's a lie, and my nefesh elokit will desire the good things. My job in this world is to find the emet, the truth. Now the problem is that when I constantly feed off whatever is not the truth, then I'm feeding myself air. It's like eating air. I don't get full out of it. I don't get savea. How do we say savea? Satisfied. The only thing that will satisfy me is only spiritual things. Now a lot of people will contradict this. Mapitom, it's fanatic. We need to enjoy life. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy life. You should enjoy life. We came to this world to also derive some pleasure, but if there's no point, Hashem is not connected in that pleasure, then it will be empty. Because Hashem is the component that is missing when something's empty. When we got the Torah in the desert, one of the first commandments that we got is Hashem says, "V'asitim li mikdash v'shachanti betocham." You should build me a sanctuary, a mikdash, and I will dwell in you. And if you don't build this mishkan, I can't dwell in you. And my mishkan is my body. Mishkan is a temple, a tabernacle. If my tabernacle is holy, my body, then Hashem can dwell in it. If my mind is holy, then Hashem will dwell in my mind. If my house is holy, Hashem will dwell in my house. If my business is holy, then Hashem will dwell in the business. If my house is not holy, Hashem will not dwell in there. If Hashem is missing in my life, doesn't matter in which component of my life, then it will be a void. Because Hashem has to fulfill the missing element. So if I'm going on vacation to enjoy the family, and to have a time for the family to get united and to rejuvenate and to fulfill my energies. And in the vacation, I'm going to make sure that the hotel is kosher, and where we going, the activities are kosher, and etc., etc. And I'm including Hashem in it, then the vacation is becoming positive. So Hashem is with me in the vacation. But if I'm not including Hashem in the vacation, so I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be machmir in kosher at home, but in the vacation, I'm going to be a little bit lenient. So I'm pushing Hashem out here right now. And if at home I'm very particular that the men and the women are not swimming in the same pool, and on the vacation I'm like, okay, whatever, nobody knows me. So if I'm not including Hashem in the vacation, I'm pushing Hashem out, and the vacation becomes empty. I'm not deriving, I'm getting a physical pleasure, but Hashem is not included. And this is with everything. I'm giving an example of the vacation. I'll give you another example, a little bit more personal, but with marital relations. If I'm including Hashem in the act, then the act will be positive. I'm drawing down Kedusha into this world. And the pleasure that I'm deriving out of it will be holy. And if I'm not including Hashem in it, in many different ways, then the act will give me physical pleasure, but there's not going to be any spiritual pleasure, and then the relationship is empty. That's why you see with the husband and wife when they're together, if Hashem is included in their relationship, their intimate relationship is fulfilled. And if Hashem is not included in their relationship, their intimate relationship is going to be empty. It's not going to be pleasurable. They're not going to derive what they're supposed to derive from it. And they're supposed to derive physical pleasure from it. Besides multiplying, being fruitful, that's one part of the mitzvah. And that's in anything. Same thing with a meal. If I include Hashem in the meal, that it's kosher, and it's done the right way, that I'm including Hashem in the meal, I'm going to get the spiritual satisfaction of it. This is the code, the mishva'ah, well, how do we say mishva'ah? Equation is having Hashem in it. Whenever I push Hashem out, then my tabernacle, my mikdash is empty. The result will be, maybe outside it might be fulfilled and pleasurable and exciting, but the inside will be empty. The result will be that after a couple steps, the inside feeling is going to be empty. And that's the example I gave before with the man. If he's fulfilled in the inside, he'll walk into the home, the energy is completely different. He'll respect his wife. He will honor her. He will help her. He's not going to see her as an enemy that he has to fight with her right now. Because the business is not going well, so he's fighting with the wife. Or he's not satisfied with himself, because he has his own personal issues, because he's feeling this void, then he takes out his aggression on his wife. She's the punching bag, or the kids, or his workers. So the point is that when I'm satisfied spiritually, I'm not looking to blame the world for anything. And then when I'm experiencing this down that I talked about in the beginning, it's part of the rhythm of the world. So, okay, this month the business is a little bit slow. Now I'm feeling a little bit weak, or whatever. We see that everything in our life, there's a certain rhythm of constantly up, down, in, out. Even if you're looking at the relationship between husband and wife, while the wife has her cycle, they're separated. Cycle's over, they're together. It's the most healthiest way for a husband and wife to be together. Separated, together. Separated, together. It's the right motion. If a couple is not following the laws of family purity, this is the basics for all the problems of their communication. Spiritual, mental, emotional, everything. Affects right away the kids. And the shlom bayit. Now, of course, a lot of people say, yeah, but we keep family purity and we still have problems with shlom bayit. This is not the basics, but this is one of the most important things. The thing is that a person cannot say, I'm doing 70%, so it's supposed to be perfect. First one has to do 100%, even though it's hard to do 100%, but sometimes even when you put the effort, that sometimes is enough, just doing the effort and trying. But the point is, to make a long story short, is that if my pnimiyut, my inner existence, is not fulfilled and satisfied, I will constantly look how to fill it with something. If I will pursue very physical things, then the vessel will grow and grow and grow and grow and nothing in it. That's why you see that in relationships, the husband and wives, if it's not a healthy relationships, the more the time passes, the gap becomes bigger. And bigger and bigger and bigger. Same thing with the relationship between a parent and a child. If they're not growing together, then they're growing distant from each other. So ultimately, when I want to seek for the ultimate happiness, because what really makes me happy is that the energy in my home is calm, that I have a good relationship with my husband or wife, that I have a good relationship with my kids, that my livelihood, my parnassah is normal. The more the better, but it's normal. That we kind of constantly seeking for a balance. And if my life is not balanced, then it throws me off balance to different sides. And the whole point of me is constantly focusing myself to bring myself to balance. And if I'm off balance, this is the character of the Nefesh HaBehemit. If the Nefesh HaBehemit is empowered, then my life is not going to be balanced. So either it will be too much to one side, too much to this side. And if my Nefesh HaElokit is empowered, my life will be centered and balanced. So when I'm up, it's good. When I'm down, it's also good. That's the rhythm of life. And you don't get excited because something wrong happened. Besides the fact that 50% of these downs will be disappearing because these are the reactions that I'm bringing on myself. So ultimately, when I want to get more practical, because talking is very nice, but I want practical things. So ultimately, one wants to strive to be as close as possible to Hashem and to be as much as possible following the manual. Because the manual, the Torah that Hashem gave us, is not to annoy us. It's not to limit us. It's not to make my life hard. There's a reason for that. Now, exactly like you said, it seems much more pleasurable and satisfaction and etc. to take a 40-minute bath than to read 40 minutes text. And like that, there's many other examples. I don't see why should I do this? I don't see any reason to it. Tell me not to steal, I understand. Tell me not to kill, I understand. Tell me to follow this law that doesn't make sense, I don't understand. Why do I need to dip in a bath, a mikveh, after I have my cycle? I don't see any connection to it, it's nonsense. So the thing is that when I bring into my life my own opinion, this is what's called an ego, or what I said before, my own ratzon, my own desire, then this is the recipe for failure. Because as not nice as it sounds, Hashem didn't consult us when He created the world. Hashem didn't ask us if it's comfortable for me, if it's not comfortable to me, if I want it, if I don't want it. Now when I'm coming to a point that I'm saying, this I don't mind, this I do mind, and this I do mind contradicts the Torah, then that's the first basics, the foundation where I'm going to go to the wrong way. And then when things are going to start not working out, I'm going to blame it on everything but the truth. So a lot of people say, listen, it's not comfortable to me what you're telling me to do. It's very not comfortable to be dressed with a long dress or long sleeve. It's very hot outside. It's not comfortable for me now to wait a couple hours between the meat and the dairy. And this is not comfortable. That is not comfortable. But this is a very superficial way of looking at it. It's almost like saying, a salad is not tasty. I want to have ice cream. That's going to really satisfy my taste buds. But internally what it's going to do is going to make me feel sick and heavy. And then I'll gain weight, I'll be more heavy. But the salad might not taste good, or doesn't look so exciting on the outside, but the pnimiyut, the nutrition I'm going to get from it is going to give me energy. I'll be energized, I'll be happy, I'll have good mood. Like the food actually affects our mood. People who eat a lot of sugar makes them very moody, very upset. People think that they're upset because somebody annoyed them. 50% of the aggression a person has is from the food. The food irritates the body because the food becomes part of the blood. If the blood is not clean, it will start affecting the nerve system. That's why people get all sorts of sicknesses, because the blood has poison in it. It has all sorts of poison in it. It starts affecting the nerve system. So people will get, like for example, you drink a lot of Diet Coca-Cola. You think you're going on a diet. The junk that's in it affects the nerve system in such a way people get these twitches from the Diet Coke. And it will affect their nerve system to a point that they're going to have problems with sleeping, problems with ADD, all these little problems. And people will start looking for solutions and they don't understand that it's right on their plate. So the exterior part doesn't look so exciting, eating a carrot right now. But we constantly want to seek for the pnimiut, for what's inside, what is not so obvious. What is obvious is usually not good. What is not obvious is that's where the truth is, the emet is. The emet is not nice. It's like a big box wrapped in a beautiful glittery covering cover and bows, and it looks real exciting, but it's an empty box. And on the other hand, like a diamond ring that is wrapped with like a serviette like this. So the outside doesn't look good, but the inside is a diamond. So the point is that if I want to have ultimately a real happy life, that I'm very content and satisfied with my life, and happiness is not how much money I have or things like this. Anything physical, it adds, but it doesn't make me real happy. The real happiness is when my neshama is happy. So ultimately, when I want to really reach the ultimate happiness, I have to do one motion, is to move my ego out of the way. Because my ego is this ratzon that is my ratzon. It's my desire. It's my opinion. And as the more I empower my ego, this is called yeshut, the more I'm pushing Hashem out. I told you before, I mentioned that our main avodah in this world is what's called avodat hamidot. It's working on my attributes. And one of the most important midah one can work on and refine is the midat anava, being humble. And the more you humble yourself, the greater your spiritual level will be. That's why you see that Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the most humble man in history, so he reached the highest level of prophecy. There's no other prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu, and there will never be a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. He would receive his prophecy face to face. He would talk to Hashem. All the other prophets would receive it while they're sleeping. Why was he able to reach such a level, to be the one who gives us the Torah? Because he was the most humble person ever. He worked on his midat anava. The opposite of midat anava is what's called gasut ruach, yeshut, geava, coarse and pride and ego. So the more I humble myself, the more I make myself what's called a kli ra'ui. I'm now worthy to receive Hashem's abundance. Now Hashem can be dwelling in me. The more I do the opposite motion, then I'm pushing Hashem out of the picture. The more Hashem is out of the picture, the more empty I'm going to be.
Can you define humbling yourself?
Humbling yourself, midat anava is defined. First of all, midat anava, humbling yourself. There's two ways how you do it. One of them, it's between what's called ben adam lechavero, between one person and another person, and that will be explained as, first of all, that I judge every person favorably. That's first of all. Second of all, I don't see anyone that I'm better than anyone. I see everybody as equal to me, and I actually see myself less than other people. And the thing is that I accept every person as they are. It's basically the ultimate, what's called Ahavat Yisrael. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. I don't judge a person negative ever. So this is what's called ben adam lechavero. But there's also humble between adam lamakom, between me and Hashem. And humbling me in front of Hashem is that I accept whatever Hashem gives me or puts me through, I accept it. Because when I don't accept how Hashem is governing the world, this is the opposite of being humble. Because I'm not happy with how Hashem is governing the world. This is what's called hanhaga. I'm not happy with the hanhaga of Hashem. Why right now the business deal didn't work? So I'm not humble in front of Hashem. I'm not accepting that this is Hashem's will. So one needs to first of all humble himself in front of Hashem. Is accept everything that happens from Hashem. You constantly have to practice it. And the more important one is to humble myself in front of other people. And if I humble myself in front of another person, but first of all that I don't judge any other person, I judge everybody favorably. And that I don't see that I'm better than somebody else. And the more that I would work on my midat anava, the more that I'm going to become what's called a nothing. This is what's called in the Hasidic terminology, bitul. Bitul a yeshut, I'm nothing. And the more I'm mevatel myself, I'm actually elevating myself. And the more any relationship that I'm going to come with ego, this is a recipe for disaster. I come to an ego to my marriage, I'm only going to fight. If I come with an ego to how I'm educating my kids, to a business deal, anything that I would come with an ego that I think that I'm something, that I'm so great, then what will cause from it is just fraction. So when a person wants to tachlis, you want to start practically doing things, is you have to work on your midat anava. The first and most important thing is that you have to make sure that your life is a mikdash, is a temple for Hashem. So first it starts with my body. So my body has to be pure. And then I want to work on my mind. So my mind should be pure. So it's what I'm looking at. It's what I'm listening. It's how I talk. Then I want my eyes to be pure, my ears to be pure, my entire Mishkan has to be pure. I'm not going to go into every little detail and example. You understand from it what you can take out of it and start working on it. So if a person has a problem with lying all day long, his mouth is not pure. Anything that comes out of the mouth, this is bichlal, just that you'll have a little bit of hints. Anything that has to do with our mouth, like lying, lashon hara, cheating, all this, for whatever reason that we don't understand, it affects our shlom bayit, our relationship between me and my spouse. Why? I don't know why. Anything that has to do with my thoughts will affect my relationship with my kids. The chinuch of the kids will affect it. Pure thoughts, impure thoughts, what's ever going on in my mind. So the more I elevate myself and I refine myself, then my mikdash is more holy, then Hashem can dwell in it. Now I expand to my house, so my house has to be holy. Meaning that, the food in the house has to be kosher. And the house has to be a keeping Shabbat house, a Shomer Shabbat house. And I want to be tznius in the house. I want to have, things that are not modest in my house. What's called pritut. And then the language that is used in the house, I want it to be clean. And the shows that's running on the TV, I want it to be clean. Etc., etc. I want my house to be a pure place. I don't want my house to be an impure place. Then it goes out again. It expands to my business, to everything. Now, the more I refine myself, the more I elevate myself, the more I pure myself, make myself pure, the more room for Hashem is to be involved. The more Hashem is involved, by default, my neshama is more satisfied. Then by default, I'm a much happier person. The more I accept the yoke of the Torah, it might seem that it doesn't make any effect. Like you're saying, I will get much more relaxed if I do yoga now for half an hour and sit in a bath for half an hour, or go for a walk for half an hour, or watch a movie now for an hour. Let me just relax. I need my relaxation because the kids are driving me crazy and I have a lot of pressure. The shekel here is that this is not what's going to give you the relaxation. Yeah, it's good to exercise. You have to exercise. But that's not what we're going to do the relaxation. It's just going to keep you in good shape, which is important. The point is not to do it excessively. If you work out twice a week. 15 minutes a time, half an hour at a time. Some people do it 3 hours every day. So you're taking it out of proportion. And yes, there's nothing wrong with taking a bath. But don't do it every day for 40 minutes. Do it once a week for 20 minutes. Whatever, I'm just giving you that you can't move out throw out all your little pleasures. You want it. Ultimately, you slowly want to give it over.
I wonder when it comes to children, how much we should expect children to go along these same ideas, like choosing the cucumbers over the sweets, or that my children will probably only go into the shul children's service because of the sweets at the end, or things like that. Or even if I was to give them a treat, I'm giving them physical things.
Children is a completely different thing. Children is a whole shiur by itself. Maybe the next shiur we'll do just children. Because every child is a completely different thing. One child needs a certain dose of physical things, and the other child needs a certain dose of spiritual things. And each child is completely different. Now the entire structure of the children, first it originates with how the man and woman started, the husband and wife started. So I know a lot of people don't like hearing it, but couples that were together before their marriage, they brought some type of impurity on the neshama that the child is carrying it with them. And if they don't do tshuva, then the child has this impure power on them because the parents were together before they were married. Actually, Torah prohibits us for a man and woman to be together before they are actually in a chuppah. So if they actually did it, for whatever reason, that's not the point, we're not judging anyone, but they have to do tshuva for it to remove it. And then it depends how the chuppah was. So if the chuppah was not kosher, then again, there's something not sitting well in the connection. Because the husband and the wife is the same soul, just cut in half. One piece of the soul is in the husband, one piece of the soul is in the wife. And they travel around the world for 20, 30 years, and they meet together. If the chuppah is kosher, then Hashem sews the neshama together. And if the chuppah is not kosher, they might be the other half, the bashert, but they're not sewed correctly. And unfortunately in the world, you'll be surprised, you might be shocked. 90% of the Jewish couples are not really married, especially in America. In Israel, the Rabbanut is very particular about certain things. In America, 90% of the marriages are not real marriages. I have an album with hundreds of couples that I got them remarried because they weren't really married. Excuse me? Why they weren't really married? The chuppah was not kosher. If one of the witnesses is not kosher, this is not kiddushin, and then they're not married. Now, a lot of the rabbinical authorities in America, I don't know how it is in other countries, in America I know that a lot of the rabbinical authorities were like, listen, if they're not following the laws of the Torah, and they don't care if the wedding is real or not, better that they're not going to be really married, because what's going to happen if chas v'shalom they get divorced, they're not going to care about a get. Now if they're really married, kedat Moshe b'Yisrael, and then they get divorced and they don't get a get, and then they get remarried and they have kids, these kids are mamzerim. So better for them to live not married and every time they're together it's a sin, than chas v'shalom that if they get divorced and there's no get, there's going to be mamzerim in Israel, because you can't trace the mamzerim. So many of the rabbinical authorities in America say, better that they're not going to be married, leave it alone. But the reality is that most couples in America, especially if they're doing all sorts of weird things in America,
I wasn't one, it was.
which is, so they're not really married. The fault in it is that they can be the real basheret, the real other half, but they're not really married. Every time they're together, it's a sin. And there's not a good connection. There's friction because they're not sewed together. That will manifest into the kids, will start affecting the kids. So with many couples that I come across, and I know that they're not planning on getting divorced, or they became Baal Tshuva, they did Tshuva. I'm not exaggerating. I have an album of pictures of couples that we got them remarried. And the first question that I ask when people come to me with problems with Shlom Bayit is I tell them, are you really married? Did you really get, no, I'm not joking. How did the chuppah was? Did you have kosher witnesses? I don't remember. I don't know. So the thing is,
What is another kosher witness?
a kosher witness, if the witness is not keeping Shabbat, he's not kosher. And there's many other things, but the main thing is not keeping Shabbat. So
Then you have to get married again.
you have to go. You don't have to make a whole party. You go to the Beit Din, you fill up a new kedusha, a new ketubah. There's two witnesses. The whole thing is 5 minutes. You don't have to.
Witnesses don't keep kosher, then you're not really married.
No, kosher is no. There's certain things. Not keeping Shabbat,
Not keeping Shabbat. So,
then that will make a witness not valid.
so am I not really married?
So if your witnesses are not kosher, then yeah.
Well, they don't keep Shabbat, my witnesses. It was my family.
So first of all, family cannot be witnesses. That's another condition.
Oh, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, you
my
can
family.
have witnesses.
I'll tell you what's another problem. In America now, they bring the witnesses to be women. They do reform weddings, and the witnesses sometimes, first they don't have witnesses. Sometimes they bring a woman to be a witness. A woman cannot be a witness. Or they bring the family member cannot be a witness.
Of the ketubah.
Yeah, in the chuppah, yeah. They have to look, they have to be kosher. Now there's many laws and dinim, it's not black and white. but it is something to look into. And a lot of people who come to me with problems with shlom bayit, or problems with women that they can't get pregnant, or problem with kids, etc., etc., then I first of all I backtrack. Okay, let's start from the beginning. How did you meet? Was it kosher? Were you shomer negiah? I'm chas v'shalom not judging anyone. I also came from that world. It's not about judging somebody, it's correcting a problem.
You weren't already getting all of your children carry that moment.
Shomer negiah, I'm not talking about right now holding hands. I'm talking about having relations.
You see that child, still that child has that.
If the parents were together, had marital relations, before they were married in a chuppah, they bring a certain impurity on them. Because it's a very severe sin for a man and a woman to be together when they're not married. It's one of the most severe sins in the Torah. So they bring what's called a ruach tumah, a very powerful impurity on them. Now they take the exact same act, and through the channel comes the neshama. Now the channel is all impure, so the neshama gets dressed in this impurity. So the child will come to this world, and the child will have to deal with all sorts of things, a very big yetzer hara, all sorts of behavioral problems, all sorts of things. Now, once again, it's not black and white. It's not that if a child is wild or has ADD or has some disorder, it's because of that. I'm just giving you like a real general map. But when I try to dissect something, when you asked about kids, first I go to how the husband and wife met each other, and then how the wedding was, and then how they were together. Maybe they weren't real shomer Torah and mitzvot at the time, and the woman wasn't pure. If the woman is after her cycle and she didn't go to the mikveh, she has a very strong impurity. This is called tumat nida. And the same thing, she's impure. So the tzvar rechem, the how do you call it tzvar rechem? The canal where the baby goes out from, has impurity there. So the baby gets this impurity. Everything can be retroactively. A woman can go to the mikveh when she's 50, and retroactively change everything back. My mom went. She wasn't religious. I didn't grow up religious. When she was 65, I told her you have to go to the mikveh because the last time that you had your cycle, which was 20 years ago, but you didn't go to the mikveh, you're carrying this impurity with you.
My Rebbe said that we always carry a certain impurity until Mashiach comes. And then
That's tumat met. That's impurity of death. We all have tumat met on us. The second that the baby comes out of the womb, the doctor touches it, that's it, the baby has tumat met on it. We all have this. When Mashiach is going to come, they're going to slaughter the red heifer, they're going to make what's called the mei chatat, sprinkle us, and then this is what's called it ruach hatumah avir min haaretz. But we have different impurities. We have impurity of sleeping. We have impurity of nida, of the woman's cycle. There's all sorts of types of impurity. But the impurity of the woman's cycle, what's called dam nida, it's a very strong impurity. And if the woman didn't go to the mikveh, then this impurity affects her, the husband, and the kids. And a woman can retroactively change that after 40 years even. And it will do a very strong effect. So all these stages, and not only that, it's how the parents conceive the child. If the woman was pure, then how the act was done. There's many components. So all this is the basic things when I want to dissect a child. First of all, I look at the spiritual aspect. Then there's many other things. But children, Shlomo HaMelech says, Chanoch l'na'ar al pi darko. Each child is completely different. And some children, they don't need the physical treats to pull them in. Some do. A child is a completely different world. If everything is built based on the Torah and 100% pure, most likely the children will not have this yetzer hara for all these little things. So sometimes you can look at a certain individual, a great rabbi, that you know that his life is devoted to Torah and mitzvahs, and his wife is in his level. You look at the kids and they're like these angels, because they don't carry all these klipot that the parents did. And again, it's not about judging somebody by saying, "Oh, they're not holy, so the kids are suffering." A lot of people don't like hearing this because they're saying, "What? So if I'm not a great tzaddik, then my kids are suffering." It's not about blaming somebody or judging somebody. It's almost like me saying, "Look, if you're going to eat sugar all along in treats, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to gain weight. It's not about me putting you in a corner or judging you. I'm just telling you, you do action, now there's a reaction. So we want to be, instead of letting my ego get me upset, oh, what are you judging me now? You're telling me I'm not as good as you? This is the ego, the reaction of the ego saying that. But if a person wants to humble himself, okay, wait a minute. Because most people don't like hearing what's called cherpatam. A person doesn't like hearing how bad I am. You go now to an advisor and he starts telling you, you're bad here, you're bad here, you're bad here, like, okay, you're fired. I don't want to hear you, I don't want to listen to you even. Some people are so sunk in this level that they go to a financial advisor and the financial advisor tells them, you have to invest here, don't pull your money out of there. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to somebody else. So sometimes you go into a spiritual advisor and the spiritual advisor tells you, you're a wonderful person, but you're doing this, and this wrong, and this is bringing on you a certain energy, a certain impurity that affects the entire structure, your home, your relationship, the kids, everything. So there's always, a balance between the spiritual and the physical, but the spiritual is much more dominant. So with kids, Bezat Hashem, maybe next year we should do just talking about kids, because kids you have to be a master in bringing up your kids. You have to really know each kid, what dose they need, how much love to give to each kid, how much severity. Some kids, you have to be very severe with them. Now, in order for me to be an unbelievable parent, is only if I'm refined. If I'm not refined, if I'm coming with issues, how am I going to be a good father? If I have my own issues, if I have issues with anger, for whatever reason right now, whether I'm doing the wrong acts that brings me to anger, or whether I'm not working on myself, and I have all sorts of issues, I'm never going to be a good father. Because why? I'm gonna see only the bad in my kids. I'm not going to be able, I don't know many parents that they apologize to the kid if they did something wrong. Oh, I'm the parent, I need to apologize to the kid. Yeah. If you chas v'shalom, you have a bad day and you scream at your kid, you have to be a mature individual and say, I couldn't control myself. I had a very bad day. And to go to the kid and say, I apologize. I had a bad day. My clients drive me crazy. I have a problem with money right now. I'm very uptight. I'm sorry I let it out on you. And very few parents know to come to the child and apologize to the child. Now, children are not stupid. Children are smarter than they look. Children are adults in small bodies. You just need to know how to deal with them and give them a lot of respect and a lot of love, and to understand that they have emotions, they have desires, and you, the parent is the architect of the child. And you can create an amazing human being, and you can destroy a human being. Most of the people in our generation and generation back that are a little bit messed up, and again, I'm not saying it chas v'shalom to laugh at somebody, but they're in that position because the parents messed them up. Because the parents dealt with them in such a way that the child has all these issues. He never got love, he never got attention, he never got anything. Well, all sorts of things, neglection. I'm not talking about severe things like molestation and things like that. That's bechlal. The parent can destroy a person's life with an act, an unbelievable act. So the thing is that we have an unbelievable responsibility, and when God gives us the opportunity to bring a kid to the world, He tells us, hey, take it easy, it's not just... and that's it. You have a very strong responsibility. B'ezrat Hashem, maybe next shiur we're going to talk about that. I think it's going to be very, very valuable. But just to kind of wrap it up, before we do some questions, the point is that ultimately when I want to reach my ultimate happiness, the true happiness is only if I make space for Hashem in my life. That's how I reach the ultimate happiness. And putting Hashem in my life is digging deep down in my soul to understand what does God want from me. And when I do what God wants from me, I'll reach my true happiness. When I do what I want, I'll never be satisfied. And that's how you reach the ultimate happiness.